Hello everyone, it's Mr. Salimata over here, and in today's lesson we'll be looking at solving quadratic equations by factorizing. Yes, okay, so this lesson will be divided in two parts. In our first lesson we're going to be looking at two-term quadratic equations in which we're going to use techniques like taking out the greatest common factor and difference of two squares. Yes, and in our second part we're going to explore quadratic trinomials, both with a leading coefficient of 1 and that of a different leading coefficient. Yes? Okay, so now let's get into this lesson. All right? Okay, so the standard form of a quadratic equation is ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0. Right? Now, if we look at our first question over here, you can tell that it's missing a constant term, yes, which is a c. So then that leaves us with what? That leaves us with ax squared plus bx equal to 0. Yes, and this right here is the standard form of a two-term quadratic equation. Okay, so now for us to work out our first equation, we have to take out the greatest common factor. All right, and if we look at our first equation over here, we have x squared over here, yes, and negative 12x. So what is the greatest common factor of x squared and negative 12x? It's x, right? Okay, so let's take the x out. And what are we going to be left with? We'll be left with what? With x minus 12 equal to 0. All right. Now, what will be our second step? Our second step here is using the zero product property. Yes, by setting each factor to 0. All right. So let's do that. So we have our first factor over here, x equal to 0. Yes, and that will be our first solution, right? So now let us set our second factor to 0 as well, right? Our second factor is what? X minus 12 equal to 0. Okay, so now let us find the value of x by isolating it. And how do we do that? We do that by just simply adding 12 to both sides of our equation. Yes, negative 12 and positive 12, those two cancel out, and we shall be left with what? With x equal to 0 plus 12 is 12, right? Okay, so there we go. This is our what? Our second solution. Yes, so therefore our solution is what? Is x equal to 0 and x equal to 12. Okay, let us look at our second question over there. And if we look at this question, we can also tell that it is a two-term quadratic equation, right? And it is in this form. Okay, and so for us to work out this equation, we're also going to take out the greatest common factor. Now, if you look at this equation over here, you can notice that it has what? Two common factors, right? The first common factor is in the constants, yes, which is a 3 and 18, right? And the second common factor is in the variable, yes, x squared and x. Okay, so let's first take out the greatest common factor in the two constants. Okay, all right, so what is the greatest common factor of 3 and 18? The greatest common factor of 3 and 18 is what? Is 3. So let's take the 3 out. We shall be left with what? With x squared plus 6x equal to 0. Yeah, okay, so now let us take out the greatest common factor in the variable. Yeah, what is the greatest common factor of x squared and x? Yeah, I'm now dealing with the variable. Yeah, yes, what is the greatest common factor? It's x, right? So let's take that out. So that will be 3, yes, x, open brackets, x plus 6 equal to 0, right? Okay, And this is like 3 multiplied by x. That will just be 3x. Yes, x plus 6 equal to 0. Okay, so what will be our next step? Our next step will be what? We'll be setting each factor to 0. So let's start with our first factor over here, 3x. Let's set that to 0. 3x equal to 0. Right? Now let us find the value of x by simply isolating it. And we can do that by what? By dividing 3 to both sides of our equation. Right? 3 into 3 is 1. 1 multiplied by x is x equal to 3 into 0 is 0. So this is our first solution. Now remember, we still have our other factor over here. Let us also set that to 0. Yes? So x plus 6 equal to 0. Right? Let's find the value of x by isolating it. And how do we do that? We simply subtract 6 to both sides of our equation. Right? Positive 6 and negative 6, those cancel out. We shall remain with x equal to 0 minus 6 is what? Is negative 6. Yeah, so therefore, our solution is what? Is x equal to 0 and x equal to negative 6. Yeah, okay. So now let's look at our third question over here. Now, if you look at our third question, it's not in this form. Yes? So what are we going to do? We have to rearrange this equation to be in this form. Yes? The standard form of a two-term quadratic equation. Okay? And how do we do that? We simply subtract both sides of our equation by 8x. So let's do that. Subtract 8x, yes, from both sides of our equation. Yeah? Yes? Now, 8x minus 8x. What's that? Those two cancel out and we shall remain with a 0, right? And we shall then have what? 10x squared minus 8x equal to 0. Yes? If we look at this equation, this is a two-term quadratic equation, right? And we are also going to work out this equation by taking out the greatest common factor. Okay? And it has also two common factors. All right? The first factor is in the constants over here, 10 and 8. Yes? And the second common factor will be in the variable, the x variable. So let us start by taking out the greatest common factor of 10 and negative 8. Okay, and the greatest common factor of 10 and negative 8 is what? Is 2. So let's take 2 out. What are we going to be left with? We shall be left with what? 5x squared minus 4x equal to 0. Right? Okay, so now we're done with the constants. Yes? Now, let us deal with the variable. X squared and negative x. What is the greatest common factor of x squared and negative x? X, right? So let's take the x out. So that will be like 2x, yes? And what are we going to be left with? 5x minus 4 equal to 0. Yes? This right here is 2 by x, which is what? Which is just 2x. Yes? 5x minus 4 equal to 0. Okay, so what will be our next step? Our next step will be what? Setting each factor to 0, right? So let's start with the first factor over here, 2x. Let us set this to 0. So that will be what? 2x equal to 0. Yes, now let us find the value of x by simply isolating it. And how do we do that? We divide both sides of our equation by 2, right? So let's do that. Divide by 2 and divide by 2. 2 into 2 is 1. 1 multiplied by x is x equal to 2 into 0 is 0, right? So there we go. This is our first solution. Okay, now remember we still have this other factor here. So let us set that to 0 as well, right? Okay, so we have 5x minus 4 equal to 0. All right, let us isolate 5x by simply adding both sides of our equation by 4. Yes, we're adding 4 to both sides of our equation. Negative 4 and positive 4, those two cancel out. We shall remain with what? With 5x equal to 0 plus 4 is 4. Right? Now, what will be our next step? Our next step will be what? Finding the value of x by simply isolating it. And we can do that by what? By dividing both sides of our equation by 5. Yeah? 5 into 5 is 1. 1 multiplied by x is x. Equal to 4 over 5. Yes? This is our second solution. So therefore, our solution will be what? X equal to 0 and x equal to 4 over 5. Yeah? Okay, so now let us take a look at our fourth equation over here, or rather our fourth question. Yes? Now with this question, we're going to use a technique called difference of two squares. Yes? Now talking about difference of two squares, I've done a lesson on that. So please check that lesson out to get a better understanding. Yes? Now what is difference of two squares? So difference of two squares is the product of the sum and difference of values. Yes? So let's say we have a squared minus b squared. Yes? So we said it's what? The product of the sum. Yes? So a plus b and the difference of the values, right? A minus b, right? The product of the sum and the difference of the values. All right? Okay, so now let's take a look at this equation over here. Yeah? Let's look at x squared. Is x squared a perfect square? Yes. So let's write that x squared over here. Yeah? Okay, so now, is 49 a perfect square? Yes, 49 is a perfect square, right? What's a square of 49? 7. Okay, so then we shall have what? That equal to 0, right? And if we look at this expression over here, and we look at this expression, they're the same, right? So then we can factorize it in this form, right? So then what are we going to have? We shall have what? X plus 7 and x, yes, minus 7 equal to 0, right? What will be our next step? Our next step will be what? Setting our two factors to 0. So let's do that. Let's start with the first factor over here. X plus 7 equal to 0. Yes. Let's find the value of x by isolating it by simply what? Subtracting 7 from both sides of our equation. Positive 7 and negative 7, those two cancel out. We shall be left with x equal to 0 minus 7 is negative 7. Okay? So now, let us deal with our other factor over here. Let us also set that to 0. X minus 7 equal to 0. Yes? Let us find the value of x by isolating it. And how we're going to do that? We simply add 7 to both sides of our equation, right? Negative 7 and positive 7, those two cancel out. we shall be left with what? With x equal to 0 plus 7 is what? Is 7, right? So therefore, our solutions is what? Our solutions are x equal to negative 7 and x equal to 7, right? Okay, so now let us deal with our fifth and last question. Yeah, with this question over here, we're going to use two techniques. Yeah, the first technique will be taking out the greatest common factor, and the second technique will be using difference of two squares. Okay, so now let us look at 3 and negative 75. What is the greatest common factor of 3 and negative 75? It's 3, right? So let's take that out. What are we going to be left with? We shall be left with what? With x squared, right? 3 into negative 75 is what? Negative 25, right? Okay, so now let's look at our terms in the brackets. Yes, let us look at these two terms in the bracket. We can easily tell that this is the difference of two squares. What do I mean by that? Yeah, is x squared a perfect square? Yes, x squared is a perfect square, right? Is 25 a perfect square? Yes, 25 is a perfect square. What is the square of 25? 5, right? So then we shall have what? Equal to 0. So you see, yeah, difference of two squares, right? So then we just have to factorize it in this form, right? So let's do that. We shall have what? 3 open brackets x plus 5 and x minus 5 equal to 0, right? What will be our next step? Setting each factor to 0. Let's start with the first factor over here, x plus 5 equal to 0. Let us find the value of x by simply isolating. And how do we do that? We subtract 5 from both sides of our equation. Positive 5 and negative 5, those two cancel out. We shall be left with what? With x equal to 0 minus 5 is negative 5. Okay? Okay, so now let us deal with our second factor over there. Let us also set that to 0. So then we shall have what? X minus 5 equal to 0, right? Let us find the value of x by simply isolating it. And we can do that by adding 5 to both sides of our equation, right? Negative 5 and positive 5, those two cancel out. We shall be left with what? With x equal to 0 plus 5 is 5. So therefore, our solutions are what? X equal to negative 5 and x equal to 5. Yeah? All right. Thank you so much. I'll see you in my next lesson.